stop our conversations. Thank you very much. We're going to stop our conversations now. Thank you. I hope you learned something new and interesting about somebody at your table. This is our time for us to grow and meet each other and understand what we're about, and also get connected for future activities and plans. So right now I have the honor to bring up one of our own who's going to be speaking to us today. So we have Denny Smith with us. And some of you may have heard him before a little bit. He's been at tables and he talks about a lot of really interesting things. But he's going to be talking about leadership from the inside out to create a culture that people want to be part of, like the Optimist Club, and a workplace where people enjoy coming to work. Some of you may know that Denny was a former teacher and a coach, which you'll hear about because he has another book coming out soon. But his message really is about to build people's confidence, to increase people's competencies, and to help people get a bigger kick out of life, which I think we can all appreciate, both on and off the job. He's the author of several books, and I'm going to let him talk to you about the books. He is one of our beloved members, and he brings a lot of joy when he's with us. So I think a good way for the Optimist to always welcome a speaker is you stand up and give him a standing ovation before he talks. I tell you, it's always embarrassing. Where are you, Denny?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a delight to be here. We do have some time, so I want to share a couple of things. Irina and the Ukrainian students, we were blessed to have them visit St. Cloud 2 years ago. We could only, there's only one school started early enough, but our students and their students got to visit, and it was just heartwarming to see these kids in the backyard. Beautiful sunny day. Last year we were able to expand that because it was a little later, so we could get public school students coming, and we had 200 students from our public schools that got to hear the story and interact. And the biggest highlight, according to our kids, was after it was all over, we went out to the backyard at Cathedral High School overlooking the beautiful Mississippi River, and our kids were able to sit and visit and talk and have lunch with the students from Ukraine. And it was a life-changing experience when they found out what kids go through, and they had so much optimism and so much resiliency, so I'm pleased that you folks are coming back. Don't miss it. That's what, the 13th, I think, of September, whatever it is. Don't miss that program. You will be so inspired just to hear them. And then just to start out, we have a little extra time here, so I want to let you in on a little secret about Karen. You know, she was a pretty talented person. When she was in high school, she played the clarinet. And one night she was riding home from school, and she hit a deer. And she got out, and the deer was just writhing in pain, and she wanted to, find a tire iron or something and put it out of its misery. Well, she couldn't find a tire iron, so she pulled out her clarinet. And it only took 2 songs, and the deer was, they don't get any better. Our topic today is leadership from the inside out. Again, if I could sum up everything I talk about in one sentence, it would be this, that you make a difference. You make a difference in the Optimist Club. You make a difference at work. You make a difference in your community. In fact, you make a difference in the world. Maybe that is best summed up by this little poem, The Task. To build a better world. But I said, how? World is such a big place. It's so complicated now. And I'm so small and helpless, there's nothing I can do. But God in all his wisdom said, just build a better you. That's exciting when I think about the fact that what I need to do to make the world a better place to live is to build a better me. And all you have to do to make the world a better place to live is to spend a little bit of time every day making you a better you. World strives for love and joy and peace and productivity, all of those good things, one person at a time. So that makes you pretty important in the scheme of things. And you might ask, well, what does that have to do with leadership from the inside out? It has everything to do with leadership from the inside out, because it all comes from within. It's the kind of person that you become. When I go to a seminar, I always like to have two goals. One is to pick up one aha, that one idea that you can use and take back with you and really put it into place. And two is to have a little fun. Nowhere is it written that we have to have long faces and stern looks to make this a good learning experience. So really do enjoy the ride, have some fun. We're going to have some chance for group discussions and interactions. Just enjoy the heck out of it. This is a quote from one of my favorite speakers and authors, Dr. Wayne Dyer. He said, "You are a sum total of the choices that you make." And let me repeat that. You are a sum total of the choices that you make. We need to put that into perspective. I can't control the weather today, only control the way I think and react towards that. I can't control the inflation rate 5 years down the road. I only control the way I think and react toward that. I can't control the way another person treats me. I can only control the way I think and react towards that. I might set boundaries. You know, I might say I will and won't accept whatever, but ultimately I can't control them. I only control my reaction to it. And let me tell you, we have a tool right over there that can teach us how to do that. Remember now, tenet number 1, to be so strong that nothing can disturb my peace of mind. Well, that means if somebody gives you a zinger, gotta let it go, gotta let it go. And you know, it's amazing. So I want to share with you this story, Good Wolf, Bad Wolf. It's an old story, you know, every motivator tells it, but I like it because it has a great message for us. Little girl went up to her dad and she said, "Dad, sometimes I have all of these positive thoughts and sometimes I have all of these negative thoughts. Why is that?" And he said, "Well, you have a wolf on each shoulder. And the wolf over here is feeding you all the good stuff. The wolf over here is feeding you all of the negativity, and they're always fighting with each other." She said, "Well, which one's going to win?" All depends on which one you feed. And that's really kind of the crux of what we're doing today. If somebody would come up to me, and they do often, "Hey, I don't believe in that motivation stuff. I think it's a bunch of fluff, bunch of hooey." But I'll tell you what, I'll take one idea and I'll try it for 30 days. What would you suggest? Make it a habit to nourish your precious mind every single day. Read something positive every single day. Get up a little early. You know, pour a cup of coffee, glass of juice. It's nice and quiet, and just you know, just read something. There's 3 things. I read a lot of things, but every morning I get up, I do my little quiet time, and I have a little daily devotional that I read. And then I read from one of my favorite books and favorite authors, Deepak Chopra's 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. Just great stuff in there. And then I read something from one of my own books. And what I do, see, the key is read it often. So you pick it up and you either earmark something or, you know, say, "Hey, I want to read chapter 5 of Deepak's book today," or you open it up and look at a page. Yeah, that doesn't turn my crank today. So you open up, you find another page, and boy, there's an idea that really hits. So I suggest these 3 things. Read, then reflect, just think about it, and then respond. And, you know, you start doing that. And remember now, you're going to respond. And see, you can do the same thing with a creed. Mike mentioned that you maybe pick out one thing. He was talking about making all of your friends feel that there is something in them. And that doesn't have to be just your friends that you go out to dinner with. That can be somebody you meet at the grocery store. It can be a clerk somewhere that you interact with often. Just make them feel that there is something in them. And I'll tell you what, you're going to be the biggest beneficiary, because the more we live that, the more we feel good about ourselves, okay? So I'm gonna bare my soul a little bit here. So here's from Charlie Tremendous Jones, motivational speaker back in the 60s. He said, where you are 5 years from now depends on what you read. And I know in this club are avid readers, and what a great habit to have. Feed your mind all of the good, precious stuff. There's so much research out there to indicate a couple of things. First of all is the power of positivity. There's no doubt about it. But also the challenges that we have. There's a lot of information out there. In fact, you remember Cindra Kemphoff, who spoke here a couple of years ago. I heard her at a seminar last week. It was really fun. And she talks about this, and I think there's a lot of research to indicate this, that it's ANT, automatic negative thinking. And we have that. We're bombarded with it. They look back at, history back when, in the pre-cave days. Well, they got up in the morning. As they walked out, there might be a tiger or a lion after them. They were just geared to looking for all of the things that they could fear. That's still somewhat ingrained in us, and research is pointing that out. So just keep in mind that you have control over not what comes into your mind, but you do have control over what stays in your mind. Dr. Alan Zimmerman was just so exciting to listen to last month, because he just backed up everything he talked about with research. We used to think this stuff is true. Now we know that it's true. So I want to bare my soul here a little bit. Back in, about 20 years ago, there's an article in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, not related to coaching, but it described me as a former fist-pounding basketball coach with anger issues. Now, folks, that's not very flattering. But unfortunately, it was more true than I wish it had been. I could give a pep talk with the best of them. I had so many gifts, but so many times my lack of emotional intelligence negated those gifts and kept me from being all that I could be. So I'm on a mission. My mission is to inspire people to master the art and science of emotional intelligence as early in life as possible. I have a message based on under middle age, over middle age. You decide what that is. If you are under middle age, don't wait until you're in your 60s to learn this stuff. Do it now. If you're over middle age, it is never too late to learn. I'm at the age where I have more yesterdays than tomorrows, but I've had more growth in the last 2 years, in fact, in the last 2 months than ever before, and growth is exciting. So let's take a look at this as a leadership skill that you can develop. I was working with some bank employees one night, and they were talking about how do you deal with that upset employee who comes in and talks to you. He said, I kill him with kindness. He said, first, I get in step. And that's saying something like, I'm really glad you came in to see me. Let's talk about that, which is different from the old authoritarian style. But hey, I got 10 people that will take your job in a heartbeat. Don't let that thing hit you on the way out. He didn't do that. He said, I get in step. Thank you for coming in. Then I just listen. And remember, listening doesn't mean, oh, I can't wait till he's done talking or she's done talking because I'm going to zing her back with this. Listening really means listening with empathy, trying to understand. Number 3 is to solve the problem. And understand now, that doesn't mean you tell them what they want to hear. You can't always acquiesce to what they wish. You have company standards, you have a team to take care of, you have your customers to take care of, you have your own personal standards. But if you are good at steps 1 and 2 it is much easier to have that person at least, accept and continue on in somewhat of a positive manner, because at least they got a chance to talk to you. Okay? I worked for a principal at Tech High School. A great guy. We got along very, very well. And we didn't always agree on a lot of things. He was an English teacher. I was a math teacher. So we had different views on grading and whatever. I remember one of our conversations where if a kid got 74%, that was not a passing grade, So they had to repeat. And he said, well, 1 percentage point, is it really that important? I said, all depends on one thing. He said, what? I said, what grade? He said, why does that matter? I said, if a senior, maybe it doesn't matter. But if that's an underclass person, they're going to have to go on to the next level, and they don't have the skills to do that. From those conversations, we developed what we called a trailer program. So if a student didn't pass, say, Algebra 2 the first semester, rather than having them going on and being lost for the rest of the year, we had a trailer course. We did the same. We did the first semester over at a slower pace, and so they could catch up and develop the skill. A lot of really, really neat things came from that. So do this. We do have some time here. So just talk about this concept. How have you used it? How can you use it? What's the most important thing to you of these 3 steps, okay? And we'll give you about 3-4 minutes for that if you would. Go ahead. I like that word foundation. And we're going to come up to something later on that I'm going to come back to that. What is the foundation of all of that? 1 or 2 more comments, anybody? Okay? Oh, all right.
Well, we had all talked about listening to
Yeah.
how important that is, and not immediately start moving towards the solution.
Yeah. Listening. Manny, would you agree with that? Where are you? Oh, there he is. Okay. All right. Okay, did you have one? All right.
I didn't have time to express this in the group, but also listening to the group, I think it depends on what people are upset about, it feels to me.
Okay.
Because, that will determine kind of how we respond to it as well.
Okay. Now, she is a conflict resolution expert. She talked about that. It all depends on what they're upset about. Sometimes it might be a little thing that can be resolved. Sometimes it might be something that's going to take a while. But you, as a skilled leader, are gonna figure out how to do that. Okay. So here to me is the key on your handout in Roman numeral 3 is EI. That is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, and we're finding out more and more and more about this. And as I mentioned earlier, had I had more emotional intelligence, I mean, it wasn't bad. We won a few along the way, had some pretty good years. But had I had more emotional intelligence, I look back and woulda, coulda, shoulda, which I'm trying not to do, because it says to forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future. Easier said than done. So let's define emotional intelligence: the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. My goodness, that's a mouthful. Pretty academic. Here's one that's a little easier: skill in perceiving, understanding, and managing emotions and feelings. Now, I got these from the internet. You can go to the internet, get 1,000 different definitions of emotional intelligence. I like this one because it's kind of my own. The ability to keep yourself under control even when you don't want to. Somebody says something or does something, you'd like to punch their lights out. Take a deep breath and keep yourself under control. And let me tell you, this is a powerful, powerful skill And it's one that the more I learn how to do that, another definition of emotional intelligence is you're upset, but you're the only one that knows it. This is a good way to measure yourself. I was registering for a pickleball one game, and the person was trying to get me registered and all of that. She was having a devil of a time, with the technology and finding me and all of that. And inside, I was starting to churn a little bit, and I said, no. She did not know that I was getting impatient. So I think that's a pretty good measure of emotional intelligence. So we're going to learn how to carve a duck. And you might say, well, what do you mean how to carve a duck? My father-in-law took up carving in his retirement. He got pretty good, carved a little duck. We still have it. And one of his favorite jokes was to ask, how do you carve a duck? Well, you take a block of wood and shave away everything that doesn't look like a duck. And you might say, well, what does that have to do with anything we're talking about here today? Well, you can use that concept. So many times when things aren't working right, we want to throw everything out and start over. When in reality, all we have to do is take a look at those 1 or 2 or 3 little things that we don't do well and go to work to fix it. So this is, to me, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. It's deep. I have to give a lot of credit for this to Dr. Wayne Dyer. So do this if you would. Say to yourself, don't do it yet. Just say to yourself, I am going to move my arm. Okay? Now everybody, move your arm. Okay? Here's a profound question, and it's deep. Who is the I and who is the my? You said, I am going to move my arm, then you moved. We've located a command center in the brain, part of the brain that sends the message from the brain to the muscle to move. We have never located the commander of the command center. That's your higher self, your higher awareness, your observer, your oneness with the universe. I don't care what you call it, but it is powerful. And the more you learn to harness that power, the more successful you're going to be at everything that you do. Again, harness it. We don't know. I was having coffee with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about this very thing. We don't know where the command center is. We've never found it. I think of it, most of us kind of believe, there's something out there that goes beyond me. See, this is what separates us from other forms of life. As human beings, we can think about what we think about. So here's a key. Awareness precedes change. Awareness precedes change. So be aware of your awareness. And let me go back now to the Optimist Creed. If you're aware of all of that stuff, hey, I was kind of envious of that other person. But number 5 says I'm going to be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as I am about my own. Or we say, well, I'm going to spend so much time in improving myself that I have no time to criticize others. And we find ourselves getting pretty critical of other people. Become aware of it. Back off, and then just think of now. But one of our Optimist members, we were talking about that, because you have to deal with problems. You have to do that. And we've determined this: that if your reason for looking at behavior of other people is to solve a problem, that's okay. If it's to criticize, just to criticize, you're not living up to the creed. Okay. So here is. Oh, and let me go back here. All right. A few years ago, I was in My Fair Lady. Great musical. Our director was phenomenal. She was so enthusiastic. She was just bubbly all the time. She knew theater up one side and down the other. She came to practice, to rehearsal, so well prepared. But what I liked most about her was her leadership style. When things were going wrong on stage, She wouldn't come up and say, look, you can learn your lines. You're supposed to be over there. You know, she didn't do that. She walked up and she said, hey, how can we fix this? Now think of that. What does that do? That turns all of your energies away from the conflict, away from the problem, I mean, you certainly have to address the problem, but it immediately reframes what you're doing to look at how can we fix this. And we have some time, so you have in your project there, here's basically the question. You don't, the handout is there if you want to use it in the workplace. So just talk about this. It'll give you about 5 minutes. We have some nice time here. Discuss this. How can you fix this in the workplace, in the community, and in your personal life? How can you use that? All right, task assignment clear? Go ahead. Okay, let's take one or two comments. Anybody want to comment? Okay. If not, that's all right. All right, a little side trip on this. I was working with a company in St. Cloud, and I'd go in 3-4 times a year. And I went in one day and talked to the person who was at that time was middle management. And I made a pitch to have me come back in and speak to him and do a little yay-rah. And he said, well, we've changed our approach. We're doing all of our training in-house. And they had 2 or 3 books on leadership that they were using as the cornerstone. He said, first of all, he said, upper management has to catch the measles. Got to get excited about this culture. He said, then we got to get middle management to catch the measles, and then we have to get every employee to catch the measles, to just be really excited about positivity and customer service and all the things that make a business successful. And I highly endorse that. As much as I really encourage outside speakers, what you do in-house, that you become the leader and the motivator and the mentor, is, that's where it really, really happens, because, excuse me, culture starts at the top and permeates the entire organization. So if you can get everybody on board, and the point is, it takes so little time. You've all seen the triangles where there's skill, knowledge, and attitudes. And, they say attitudes are so important, but, we got this new technology coming in now, or we got a new product that we're unveiling, and we just don't have time for these people skills stuff. It doesn't take much time. 15 minutes, get some tools, but then spend 15 minutes. An example might be you have a leadership meeting, your leadership team, and whatever you're picking, make out 10 to 15 minute discussion. And it's so easy. In your handouts, I have the how can we fix this thing? Well, I would suggest go back to your organization, spend 15 minutes talking about that. And all people now are constantly thinking about the positivity, the service, the enjoyment of each other in the workplace, all of the good things that make any organization go. It's not as hard as it seems. And the other thing, as a mentoring tool, I had some coaches when I was younger, and they kind of encouraged me to look at my coaching style a little bit. Of course, coaches are some of the stubbornest people in the world, and I was afraid, boy, if I wasn't doing this, I'd lose my power. Just the opposite is true. It's when you're calm, when you're a good listener, when you're understanding. You don't lower standards. You keep the standards high, but you get out of attack mode and treat everybody as well as you can possibly treat them. And there are times when you have to deal with employees that you have to part the ways with. That's all a part of being in business, But for the most part, I heard this from a speaker one time, before you do something to somebody, try to do something for somebody. That's a good idea. You got to take care of climate. Take a little side trip here again. I was working with a company one time, and they had, the climate was not very good. Leadership was pretty good. I got to know them pretty well. They were the kind of people I would like to work for, but there were so many employees that came to work with a negative attitude. And they said, we can't have that. That negativity just pulls down everything in the workplace. So they said, in 6 months, you got 6 months, to adhere to these standards. And then they hired a consultant to come in and talk to the people about that, which I highly endorse. But the key was they gave people a chance to change before they had to part the ways, okay? And sometimes you can't do that. If it's major, you can't do that. But you can so many times just help people improve. And I look back at when I was about 30 years old, I was an assistant at St. Cloud State, and Noel talked to me a little bit. I mean, I was pretty good a lot of the time, but boy, I had some of these times when I just, I blew it. And, I wish he would have had. See, hey, get some mentoring tools, get some good materials. And, I talk to coaches. You're going to say a coach is having problems with his style. Call the coach in and just talk to him about it. You're going to do that anyway. See, this doesn't take extra time. You're going to do it anyway. So you call him in and talk to him. But if you have reading material of some kind or whatever you're going to use for your materials and hand it to the person and say, look, I want you to read chapters 5 and 7 of this book, and then let's talk about it next week. Well, you're going to call them back next week anytime. Now, there's some meat and potatoes and some good, solid, positive material for them to really, really buy into. I'm just, it's really, well, you speakers out there know, it's hard to get people to buy into positivity, a lot of people. But if you can turn the ship around that much and get them thinking about the fact that there is another way. Oh my goodness, what a difference that'll make. Okay, so let's take, this is Roman numeral 8 on your handout. 4 steps to higher awareness. Number 1 is unconscious incompetence. You don't know how to do something, but you don't know that you don't know how to do it. Or it could be a blind spot. In my case, I looked at my coaching style, and I didn't see that as weakness. Bobby Knight, Vince Lombardi, they won championships. This must be the way to do it. I didn't see that as a weakness. It was my blind spot. But then you look around and say, hey, there might be a different way to do this. So you go to number 2, which is conscious incompetence. You don't do something very well, but you are aware of the fact that you don't do it well. So you go to work and you move to step 3, which is conscious competence. Okay, you're starting to get pretty good about it. You're thinking about it, but you have to think about it every step of the way. And then number 4 is unconscious competence. You do it so well that you don't even think about it. It's automatic. And all of the skills that we're talking about here today and that Dr. Zimmerman talked about last week and so many of our speakers are talking about, all of our speakers are saying this is all doable stuff. It's all doable stuff. Relative to number 3, conscious competence, I was not always very cordial with customer service people on the phone. Hey, I'm the customer. You better take care of me. You better take care of me right now. Well, I started to think about that. I said, first of all, that person on the other end is a human being. It's not their fault, but they don't deserve to be treated that way. And for sure, I don't want to treat them that way. Well, one night I was on the phone, about 15 minutes. I don't know if it was a late shipment or a credit card situation or something, but 15 minutes. And I kept my cool. I was pretty proud of that. And I got all done, and Pat came in and she said, "You sure were patient." Now, in 55 years, she hasn't accused me of being that way very often. But the point is, these are all learned skills, and I might say self-learned. We'll get to that later. Okay. This is how you learn how to walk. You know, when you were a baby, you didn't know how to walk. You didn't know that you didn't know how to walk. You know, you were just happy to get your food every day. And then you started to look around you and you saw all of these adults around you walking. Well, you knew that you didn't know how to do that. So you started practicing. And you pulled yourself up on the coffee table and they said, "Oh, you're so cute." And then you started taking some steps and you'd fall down, but you had to think about it every step of the way. Okay, how many of you think about walking? Okay, not many. And I'll tell you, I had, you do, okay?
Oh, I think about walking. I have a balance problem, so.
Oh, you do, okay.
As long as I remember my right leg is not very strong,
Okay,
I don't fall, but once in a while I forget.
okay,
And I start falling.
all right. So you really, you can do it, but you have to think about it. Okay, when I had my hip replaced, I was in therapy, and the therapist, 4 minutes? Oh, okay. Holy buckets. The therapist said, "You're limping." I said, "No, I'm not." She said, "Yes, you are." So she said, "Heel down, heel forward, heel forward." I had to reteach myself how to do that. All right, so now, here is something that I hope we can all take away today. Being your own best coach. Socrates once says that all learning is self-learning. All learning is self-learning. All coaching is self-coaching. Number one, desire. Make a commitment. Your desire to be calm has to be stronger than your willingness to fly off the handle. Your desire to be patient has to be stronger than that desire is important. And 6 months from now, if you find yourself getting better at all of this stuff, your desire level's okay. Number two, no excuses. This is a tough one. No excuses. Dr. Wayne Dyer used to do seminars on that. That was his last book, I think. People going through horrendous stuff. And he said, maybe what happened to you isn't your fault, but you are the only one. You are the only one that can overcome this. This is from Eric Butterworth. I love it. There is a reason why you get upset. You get upset because you are upsettable. Oh, no, don't lay that on me. You heard what that other person said. Of course I got upset. My kids do the dumbest thing. Of course I got upset. No excuses. I was watching my son work on a computer when he was about 8th grade. I'd walk down there and something would go wrong. You know, that's the old floppy disk days. You remember those? You know, if you put it on next to a paper clip, you'd lose it all. And he said, I wonder why it did that. That was different than his father's approach. So there are no excuses. Number three, monitor and adjust. And that's what we talked about kind of all day long. I'm getting upset. I have to settle down. And then in parentheses, there is self-talk. And keep in mind now, you're going to blow it. If you blow it, congratulations, you are a member of the human race. So forgive yourself, but then immediately begin to use the power of self-talk and visualization and tell yourself a line that I use from Lou Tice. Hey, that's not like me. That's not like me. The next time, I will respond with patience and understanding because that's the kind of person I really am. Self-talk is powerful. And number four, illustrated by the story of the violin player in New York jumped in a taxi cab and said, how do you get from to Carnegie Hall? Driver said, practice, practice, practice. These are skills. Look upon them as skills. And keep in mind that you practice and you practice and you get better and better and better and better and better. All of a sudden you wake up, boom, I've mastered that skill pretty well, okay? So I don't have time for the closing vignette that I give in my longer seminars, and nice poem, and we'd have little tears coming down our cheek. So I'm going to end today with the words of Senator Bob Murphy, the late Bob Murphy, speaker from Nacogdoches, Texas, a funny, funny guy. He said, "I leave you today with the same wish that I give to my wife every time she heads off to the beauty parlor. Good luck to you." Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.